The White House has endured a barrage of attacks from the press, inspiring a fierce response from top officials who turned their sights on the Washington Post. One America's Rion brings us the details from the White House.
The Washington Post, owned by Amazon's Jeff Bezos, wrote that the summer of 2019 was, quote, Trump's lost summer, full of squandered opportunities. To this, the Post was taken to the mat by White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham and Deputy Press Secretary Jay Hogan Gidley, who put out a punchy video response, but wrote also a scathing op-ed reply. When the Post asked, the White House provided a detailed list of the administration's 26 most important successes of the summer. Of those 26 accomplishments, the Post chose to publish just 4, which it buried under 11 paragraphs of editorialized critique. At the core of the White House's criticism of the Post, the Lost Summer article was an elaborate political opinion piece that deliberately omitted information and was charading as news journalism. The article blasted not only the Post, but also used the Post's Lost Summer article as Exhibit A in what the White House sees as a disturbing trend for a free society. That big media has become increasingly bold in disguising their leftist bias as fact. And while the press is expected to hold government accountable, there is a fine line between malicious bias and old-fashioned journalistic skepticism. Grisham and Gidley argue that media bias is a dangerous disservice to the American people, writing, media bias comes in 2 forms. It plays a role in deciding what news is and is not covered, and also in deciding how the news is covered. In this instance, the Post's reporters are guilty of both. Not one to take the beating, the Washington Post reared a defensive head and replied to the White House's criticism, arguing that the Post did address these successes, goes on to list instances in which they did, inadvertently advertising President Trump's successes while saying he is a complete failure. The Post, however, seems to bypass the White House's core complaint. Grisham and Gidley were responding to the one Lost Summer Post article and how it deceptively minimized the administration's accomplishments by cherry-picking at facts. Grisham and Gidley were not, as the Post seems to confuse, saying they hadn't covered the stories at all. The Post then seems to argue, despite Trump's successes, they are canceled out by what the Post deems as Trump's failures, eliciting a response from the president himself. The Washington Post's Philip Rucker, Mr. Off the Record, and Ashley Parker, 2 nasty, lightweight reporters, shouldn't even be allowed on the grounds of the White House because their reporting is so disgusting and fake. President Trump is addressing a broken media system, one in which reporting is no longer a beacon of skepticism and truth, but have devolved into bias, lies, and malice. A 2018 survey found 93% of journalists were left-leaning or Democrat, a majority donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign, possibly explaining the particularly hostile environment amongst media against the administration. But surveys aside, if the average American were to eavesdrop on any number of conversations here in the White House press pool, the contempt and malice toward the Trump administration might explain why top White House officials use such language as disgusting and fake to describe their journalistic work. Rion, One American News, the White House.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.